Welcome to an episode of the Rogue Treatment Podcast, the first of 2025. James, welcome.
Welcome.
How was your holiday?
Holiday?
What happened to it? Were you meant to go away?
No, I didn't go away. We'll probably go away once school holidays are finished and everyone's back. I'll go then, be quieter.
Is that a reflection of 2024 already, is it?
It is.
Oh gosh. Well, that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to go through our three pillars. We've got our shoes out there. You okay on the table?
Yeah, I don't like that the shoes are on the table, but that's okay.
Okay, well, they're going to stay there. Maybe you can do the picking out of the shoes. But
that's all on you today.
Our three favourite things to talk about and go rogue with. Business represented in the Iron Williams. We've got the health represented in the Hocker. I think they're...
Is that your Hocker?
Clifton. Yeah, obviously not worn too often.
I was going to say, it looks like they've never been worn.
Great story with them, but we'll get to that in a second. So they're I think they're the Cliftons. Anyway. And then we've got the sport represented in the traditional Copa Mundials, eh?
Yeah, nice. I just don't understand why they're on the table, but that's all right.
Oh, easy to pick from. So we've got some stats in those shoes, and we'll be pulling them out and reacting.
I see what you did. The boot is business. The sport but then that's a bad
health. I don't have a shoe for health. I was going to put a thong up there. I thought maybe
No, you can't put a thong. All right. How's thong represent health?
But just I had no idea. Either way, it wasn't going to work. But look, the quick story with those Hockers.
Oh, let's hear the story.
Before we get started, as you know, co-founder of the world famous run club, the 555, James. You've never come down to it, but anyways,
I co-founded it, but that was it.
Heard it all now. Co-founded.
I'm the one that puts all the effort in the background. You know, make sure it gets organized properly. Make sure everyone rocks up. Everything.
Can we just get this clear?
I don't have to run.
All right, we're going to go down that route. I do everything. There's some guys that they know who they are. They do some running around for me. No, I'm joking. It's a community event, and you haven't been much.
Anyway, let's tell the story about the Hocker.
Haven't been really part of the community, but anyways, let's talk about the Hocker. So, one of the other co-founders, Steve, and we decided to go to a running event. We got asked to go, and I thought, you know what, Steve, I'm not going. If you're not going, he goes, all right, we'll go. So we went to this event. We're not really like ones to sort of put ourselves forward in terms of like getting people to come down and being like over, selling ourselves in terms of the run club. It sort of just makes itself. But there's lots of people there, people from Coogee Run Club, and that were sort of have turned it into a business after a year, and a business-like run club, and they're doing really well. But the prize for the, what do they call it, the raffle. So we got a raffle ticket when we went in, and the biggest prize was a pair of Hockers. Steve and I are just sitting in the back of the room, laying low. We're meant to be like mingling. We try to mingle a little bit, but we're just not in our character. And then they pulled the prize at the end of the night, and I won the Hockers. I couldn't believe it. Oh, it was a proud day.
It's a terrible story.
Yeah, okay, moving on. Have you got any stories?
Not about Hockers, no.
Have you ever worn any of these shoes?
I've done, definitely not Iron Williams, but I used to wear Copper in the day. Yeah, I like they're comfortable. They're comfortable to wear.
Is anyone wearing them these days?
I think they still sell them, don't they?
I think, they still sell them. It's like a staple, isn't it?
Surely the people would be wearing them. Well, I guess,
everyone wears. I think they're now heavy and...
speed boots these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I needed all the pace I could get. But anyways, let's move on. So we're going to pick out some
what's
stats
the aim for today?
Well, we can start with business.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go to health, and we'll go to
so we're going to go, not like finish all of them in there, or just do one at a time? Yeah, let's finish
them all in here. I think there's probably 2 or 3 in each.
Oh, okay.
Just some things that have happened in 2024, some stats, some key events and things like that have occurred in 2024, and it's something that people have asked us to react to. So, let's get into it.
So this is the Rogue Treatment Review of 2024.
That's right.
Awesome. I like it. Let's go.
Me first?
I'm not putting my hands in them, so...
Oi.
You grabbed 2.
All right, here we go. All right, so I've just pulled out of the RM Williams boot. Well, this is interesting, James, and I think this is quite telling in that you didn't go on your holiday, and we're back here in early Jan. But 60% of Australian businesses fail in their first 3 years. Probably a stat that you're sort of familiar with, I guess.
Yeah.
In 2024 specifically, we had 436,000 new businesses, and we had 362,893 out.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there's not many that are staying around. What are your thoughts on that? Is that because we...
Well, I think it's well known that obviously startup businesses don't, traditionally last very long. That's like a well-known stat, not just in Australia, but across the world. That's a common kind of theme. And I think a lot of the time is that people start a business and they may not necessarily, they think it's a good idea, but they may not necessarily know what's involved in that business. Plus also, just because it's a good idea to you doesn't necessarily mean that there's a market for it. So I think that that's a very common kind of statistic. It's probably a little bit higher. To be fair, 60%, I always thought it was more around 50% mark. Now maybe that 50% number that I'm kind of recollecting is maybe just in general as a stat in other countries potentially as well. Maybe that's a normal stat for Australia, but 60% is still pretty high.
Yeah.
That means that majority of businesses don't last beyond the first 3 years. And I know, I think in other countries, the first year stat is a little bit higher. I think it's more around 40 to 50% in the first year. So 20% surviving the first year in Australia is probably a good stat. But then, the fact that it flips, that within the first 3 years, 60% don't last, it's worrying. It's worrying because, businesses, especially in Australia, like small businesses in particular, are where majority of employees or majority of the workforce are employed. So, post-COVID, there's clearly a bit more of a entrepreneurial boom, even if it's solopreneurs, and if they're not really getting past that 3-year mark, which, post-COVID is kind of around now. Last year, this year, we'll start to see the 3 years of after COVID that businesses would have started up. And if 60% of them are closing, that's a worrying stat.
And what have you had a business that has failed?
Failed?
You've had to close?
No, I haven't.
It's a bit of luck.
Bit of luck. Yeah.
Well, what do you think is the big barrier? Is it just because people don't know what they're getting into completely, and then they feel the real pressures of the outgoings maybe, and then they can't keep their head above water, and it all becomes too much? Or are we not as resilient as we used to be, and sticking it out?
I think it's all of that, really. I don't think it's one thing, but one of the things that I've noticed in particular with some clients is that they maybe didn't understand the financial side of it, and it's very different. Like I said before, when you start out on your own as a solopreneur, and then when you start to bring team members in, that can be a big inflection point in the business. And if they don't know how to do that, or they don't know how to measure the consequences of that, every business, when you hire people or when you try and invest in something to grow your business, there is going to be a period of I guess financial downturn, if you want to call it that. You may not make as much money, or there may be a decrease in profit, which is normal. But then have they forecasted what that looks like and how to get out of that? If they didn't really forecast that or think about that, and maybe they thought, I'll just add someone else and I'll double my business. just by adding another person doesn't double your business. Again, depends on what kind of business you're in. So then when that hasn't happened, you've now, if things stay the same, you've decreased your earning potential by half by adding another person. So if they can't then ride that out for the period of time until that second person can earn their keep and grow the business, then that's where maybe the financial aspect of the business becomes very difficult, and they can't get past that. Maybe that's where they start to either close or get themselves into obviously financial trouble.
And you mentioned like the boom in startups, and I think that's obviously, well, I assume that's in a generation that's coming through, that's with COVID coming to that time of their life, they're looking for their own, to put their stamp on something through a business. And we're seeing like, with the sort of e-commerce side of the world these days, like there's a lot of growth there for some people. And I think with social media, it can be inflamed a little bit, people can see what, oh, geez, they're starting their own business. Wow, must be going great. Look how good it looks on Instagram and social media. But really, the struggles behind that aren't seen, and the cracks and what have you. And then if then we're jumping too soon into something that we're not really prepared for, just for the sake of having our own identity on something, maybe.
Well, I think there's two aspects to that, right? The two things that I guess I want to categorize them, and then I'll explain them. The two reasons that I think people jump into their own business is, one, because of the social media aspect of it, and they see someone else doing it and they say, I can achieve that, or I can do that. I think there is that. Yeah, I think there is that FOMO social media aspect to it. And the second thing is, I think that, without getting too political, but I think there is a government impact on the current status as well. What I mean by that is that there isn't, the economy is kind of stagnated. There isn't a lot of new job opportunities. I think I saw something this morning that last year there was less unemployment, more government jobs. More jobs in the overall Australian economy, but two-thirds of them are government jobs. So you're not really hitting, like there's all these other people that are now looking for a job, and we're in a stagnated economy where there isn't anywhere else to get a job unless it's a government job. Two-thirds of new jobs are government jobs. So then how else do you earn a keep? How else do you earn money? There isn't a new, there's like, it's not like there's manufacturing you can go into. There's no real area to kind of have growth. So when you don't have that growth, you've got to work it out yourself. Yeah. So then you go start up a business, or you think you can go be a crypto dude or whatever that is, right? And then that gets caught up in the fact that you don't have those opportunities. Yeah. And then obviously the FOMO of social media as well has a big impact. And, there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of ways to try and grow a business online. But the reality is, no matter what it is, whether it's drop shipping, whether it's information marketing, whether it's crypto, all those guys that you see, saying that they make millions, there's not that many millionaires in Australia. So it's impossible that every single person online that says that they're a millionaire is a millionaire. Like, it's not physically possible, I think there's the FOMO gets caught up into it, and people go, I want to do that. And then they don't have a choice because there's no real emerging markets in Australia for people to get jobs in. Yeah, so you got to work it out yourself.
That's an interesting take, because I also think we're in a society that wants a quick buck in a way. I don't want to label that really as a society, but it's definitely a bit of a culture that's coming in. It's like, how quick can I get ahead, and who can do it for me, and how easy can it be, sort of thing. Yeah. And then we find out it's actually a lot harder than it may look. Then
that's like anything.
Are we then quitting quickly and going, nah, I'm going to go do something else quick?
Yeah, that comes back to what we said earlier, right? There maybe isn't that longevity or that resilience that's there. But that's whether it is trying to make a quick buck or it is starting another business. I don't think that changes too much. I think that's just kind of standard, right?
Yeah.
but it clearly has an impact in people starting new businesses. I don't think that there's, I still can't understand how it's 60%. Like, that's a lot. That 10% increase when you look at, there was 436,000 new businesses. So that means that, a 10% of those is a lot. And that's 40,000 businesses compared to maybe the average across the world.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a small number.
Yeah.
How many of those 40,000 employed
there
people?
Was what? 436,000 new businesses.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Crazy.
So if 10% of those are closing more than usual, like if the standard stat is 50%, and it's an extra 10%, it's 43,000 businesses that are closing. Almost 44,000 businesses that are closing. Yeah. And, you look at that exit number, 362,000, almost 363,000 businesses closed.
It's scary.
That's just last year alone. Or is that between 23 and 24? Yeah,
that's 23, 24, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or 2024, yeah.
It's a lot of businesses closing. So, yeah, I think that maybe that's a sign of the boom post-COVID. All those things we just talked about. Yeah. People thinking that they can copy stuff online and try and make something of it.
Yeah.
And maybe they're
3 years later now.
3 years later, it's not working out.
All right.
It's probably not a good sign moving into 2025, realistically. If there's maybe there'd be more employees on the market potentially, but I don't know what the unemployment rates look like.
It may be in here actually.
Oh, you got a question on unemployment rates?
I did have a squeeze before. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, here we go.
You know what?
We're gonna just take that one out.
There you go. Read it loud and proud, mate. Or not proud.
Unemployment rate is at 4%. Is that an increase or a decrease? Hang on, I've got it here. Slight increase.
Slight increase, yeah.
According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
Yep.
In December. Okay, so look.
December, yeah.
I think that makes sense, right? But it is a slight dig. I think it was a little bit higher throughout the year, but it's jumped around. But it's not overall. It's not a high number. So maybe businesses aren't having that impact. But then again, like I said before, the new jobs that were coming to the market are government-based jobs. So maybe people are snapping up those jobs quickly. It's not good though that 2/3 of new jobs are government-based jobs. I think that has a massive impact on our economy moving forward. It increases the cost of government, which is not good.
Yeah.
Again, we're going into an election year. So if you're in an election year, and it probably looks good that unemployment's down. It probably looks good that new jobs are created. But when you look at it in its intricacy, it just costs the taxpayer more. And if businesses are closing, who's going to pay for that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting one. I think like from the ground level, we've seen, in reviewing 2024, we've really seen a real change in a progressive change, but it was really noted last year in the employee market. And I think people are really know what they're looking for, or seem to know what they're looking for, and ask the right questions. We've had many of interviews. We've had we've gone right along the interview line to hiring, and then not actually starting people on their expected day one, which is definitely a change from when I was looking for a job. Do you think that's about to change?
Yeah, look, I think we talked about this in a last podcast where, like everything, all markets change, right? And we've probably been in an extended period of it being an employee-led market where, there was lots of jobs. Employers weren't maybe getting a lot of applicants. And when you do get an applicant, they may not have been the ideal candidate for you, so you have to make that decision on whether or not you hire them or not. But because you weren't getting a lot of applicants as an employer, it has an impact on your business, right? And then that's where employees, because they were dictating that market, were asking those questions, were being picky with their job selections and things like that. And I think I said in a previous podcast that that's always going to change. Like it's going to swing back to it being the opposite, an employer market, and employees will be, not have as much choice. The employer will have more choice. And I think we're starting to see that. We've obviously had a few job ads up for different roles, and every role has been a different role, but we've seen that to start to change in terms of the applications and the quality of applications. Before you might only get 1 or 2 quality applicants. A couple of the roles we've had now, we've had, maybe a good 4 or 5 quality applicants to choose from. And it's still the early signs of it. I'm not saying, I don't think it's shifted to an employer market just yet. It's still very much an employee market. But when you start to see that shifting, where you're getting more quality candidates, it's going to go that way eventually. And at some point, I definitely think at some point in 2025, it will completely shift to it being an employee market.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that if you didn't have a job, the government was paying for you to stay at home anyway.
Yeah. And that
paying
had
you well.
a huge impact. And they're paying you very well.
So the mindset and the attitude of these employees to then, if I'm going to work and I'm going to work full time, and I'm going to, if it's an industry like ours where you have to be on site 5 days a week, not that we're asking for 6 days anymore or anything like that, but it's where people start to get really picky, isn't it? And then businesses have to change and sort of like try to accommodate as best they can to sort of show them their best face to encourage.
But that's where we were at.
Yeah,
I think that's changing.
Yeah,
again, look at I'm sure it's across the news. I don't watch a lot of the news, but it's across the news everywhere. The whole,
Why don't you watch the news?
Let's not get into that. But there's obviously a lot of talk about the American elections and things like that. And I think I saw somewhere that they basically said all government employees need to come work in the office. You can't work from home anymore, right? And again, but 2-3 years ago, every major company, every major government, every major business across the world was allowing people to work from home. And then, like you said, obviously the government was paying you to stay at home, but if you had a job, you also, that's where the dynamic shifted from employer to employee. You then started seeking jobs that you could work from home.
That's right.
And that's now, I think, again, changing.
Yeah.
Right? That's going back to, well, no, that didn't work for us. And, some employees are going to hate it. And some employees will kick and scream and jump and shout, but they're only going to get away with it for a certain period of time, because it is going to shift back to an employer market where there is going to be quality candidates, and the one that fits what that employer needs is going to get the job. And that may mean that you're not going to be working from home. It may mean that, I still think a good employer will provide the right culture and provide the right perks to get the right employee. I don't think that's going to change. I think that's kind of going to be there to stay and be there to keep the good employees for a long period of time. But there's going to be certain things that are going to shift, where you maybe not going to be able to demand as much money, or you maybe not going to be able to, work from home, or whatever those conditions, they're going to change. And if you don't agree to them, the employer has 3 or 4 more applicants that are quality to choose from, and they'll just find the right one. Yeah. Whereas before, you didn't have that, and you did whatever you could to get that one quality applicant over the line.
Yeah, and then with, things being more expensive, I think we've got a couple of stats for later. People are going to need jobs, so they're probably going to be taking them, or being less picky. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I still think I think the cost of living and inflation, is still going to have an impact on the wage demands. But the reality is a small business can only afford what they can afford.
Yeah.
And small businesses being the biggest employer, well, apart from new jobs, but the biggest employee sector is small businesses. So if you can't, as a small business, pay that kind of salary with the right, I guess the adjustments for cost of living, maybe that makes a big difference come election time. I don't know.
Or the employer gives in to the employee's requests and then they fail.
And then the business fails. Exactly right. Well, 60% of them
you make
will.
up the 60%.
Yeah, then you make up that 60%. Exactly.
All right. I got lucky last out of the special boot. Okay. Staying on the small business trend, approximately 40% of small businesses identified cash flow as their major concern. Please discuss. Brokennews.com.au. Thank you.
That was from Broken News.
Broken news. Broken news.
Broken news.
Broken news.
Yeah, well, I think that's a kind of standard stat. I think it's maybe intensified in 2024.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see. It probably increased in 2024 compared to other years, but I reckon majority of small businesses at any point in time, whether it is because of the current economic situations, their biggest concern will always be cash flow. I think any business is like that. Like I said, I don't know what the increase would be or what that stat would be compared to other years, but 40% is a high number.
For our listeners, James, I mean, as a business owner, can you explain what cash flow actually is?
Yeah, I can.
Please.
Simply, it's the money
I hope you can.
the money that comes into the account and the money that goes out of the account. And I think that when people get into business and a lot of the times finances aren't their strong suit, for a lot of business owners, and that's okay. Not everyone is going to be across finances. I think it should be the core skill for a business owner, but not everyone is going to be across that. Not everyone needs to be, right? But then who do they then rely on for their understanding of where their finances are in a business? And that comes down to usually the accountant. And the issue is that if you have cash flow issues, your accountant is probably going to advise you maybe once a quarter or once a year. And if you have cash flow issues,
it's going to build up.
It's too fucking late. At the end of the quarter, if you can afford to do that, or at the end of the year, it's too late. So essentially, where I think people get caught in cash flow is they look at their revenue, and they go, "Oh, I'm making good revenue." They maybe don't understand their expenses, or if they do understand their expenses, they don't know what their accounts receivable looks like. So the difference between your revenue and who hasn't paid you, and then that's where you run into cash flow issues.
Yeah,
and I think that when you have 40% of small businesses having cash flow issues, that's quite. Like I said, it's quite normal in a small business to have cash flow issues. I think that majority of businesses year on year would have that kind of issue. But if you look at the whole idea of the cost of living going up and all those kind of wages went up, electricity went up, rent went up massively, CPI on rents were always capped at 3%. If you're negotiating a new lease in the last few years, the landlords are putting 4 or 5% on that, right? So that's an extra 2% year on year, on your rent and things like that. So those kind of impacts, if your revenue stayed the same and your expenses went up, then you're going to run into more cash flow issues than maybe in other years gone by. And if you don't know how to combat that, that's going to have a massive impact on your business. And maybe that's why there's been more exits. Maybe that's why it's 60%.
Yeah. And so really you have to be on it all the time, week to week, day by day, or depending on the size. I mean, small business is less than 15 anyway, employees, something like that. But you've got to be, looking at these numbers all the time, right?
Well, when you look at, I just saw another note here. So if you look at the industries that are most affected, construction, retail, transport, I'm not sure exactly what transport that is, and property services. So you look at all those industries that mainly were affected by cash flow issues: construction, retail, property services. They're all delayed payments, if you want to call it like that. Obviously we're in an industry, the health industry, where we get paid at the time of service, whereas construction, maybe not so much retail. Actually, retail you get paid at the time of purchase, but construction and property services, they're invoice based kind of industries where if that invoice isn't getting paid, then you are going to have some issues with cash flow.
Yeah.
Retail, their biggest issue has probably been shipping and, cost of holding stock and things like that, where their cash flow issues may have been, because that would have all gone up. But yeah, if you look at the biggest industries that were affected, it's probably their accounts receivable is high.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is that potentially, waiting on being paid, though, you have that money coming in and you've been paying your rent, you're paying your electricity, you're paying your outgoings, and then it comes time to pay wages and you're like, wait, my revenues says I should have this amount to pay wages, but I don't have
revenue
that, or
and cash
whatever
flow
it
are
is.
two separate things. Yeah. You might make $1 million per year, but
Because
have only
you're still
taken
waiting on
$500,000 in cash.
Yeah.
You're still owed $500,000 or whatever that number is, but you haven't got that physical payment. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. We could talk
Very
about that forever. Let's move on to health.
I think just wrapping that up, I think in business, what's probably really interesting is that there'll be a lot of changes throughout this year. I think there will be. We'll talk about predictions in another time, but
yes, we will. Jumping the gun here.
As per usual. I think 2024 was a difficult year for business in general. A lot of people that I've spoken to, it was very different to any other previous year of business. A few people that I spoke to that were in business, maybe like late 90s or was it mid 90s, or kind of after the global financial crisis. Australian businesses didn't get impacted after the global financial crisis anywhere near as much as other businesses, but they kind of compared it to that, where there was a lot of uncertainty around. I think the uncertainty plus the impacts of cost of living really had its toll in 2024 compared to other years where that there was similar kind of impacts. But I think that's this time, like 2025 will be a very different year. Obviously being an election year in Australia, that's going to have a massive impact into what I guess the two proposing governments are going to, propose to kind of fix that. So it'll be interesting, and I think 2025 should be a better year for business. Interest rates will come down, I'm assuming. So yeah.
Hopefully, James. Because I'm new to business, and God, that was a rough ride.
We got through it.
2025, new year. Righto, on to the Hockers. Here we go.
Oh, jeez.
So Hockers representing our pillar of health. Not sure who wrote these. Struggling to read their writing. But 6 in 10 people live with chronic health conditions, James.
Yeah.
That's from the Australian Institute of Health Welfare.
So that was a study done in 2024.
Wow.
That was last updated on
mind-boggling.
December 2024. So
60%.
These are fresh stats. Fresh stats on that. So what I think is interesting there, and we obviously talked about some of this stuff with Dr. Danny on the podcast, but
shout out.
When I did have a look at this in the study, there wasn't a lot of talk around causes or what could be contributing to that, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite interesting. Like, there's obviously, they said that it could be prevented and things like that. Like, obviously, there's, I think it was like 1/3 of these chronic health conditions can be prevented. So, if six, that should easily come down to 4 in 10 as opposed to 6 in 10, right?
Yeah.
But even 4 in 10 is still pretty high.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When you think
it's
about
huge.
it, that's still
It's
a high
ridiculous.
number.
Oh, so to be clear, chronic health conditions being cardiorespiratory issues.
Yeah, so they were very broad.
Obesity.
I found this
Yeah.
very interesting, right? Because,
Mental health.
yeah, mental health was in there, musculoskeletal conditions like chronic musculoskeletal conditions,
Yeah. Okay.
neurological conditions. The one I found that interesting was in there as a topic in
An
this
umbrella,
study.
yeah.
Yeah, as an umbrella was cancer as a chronic health condition. I don't know if that means
Did they
people
have-
living with cancer
Yeah.
over a period of time, which I thought was interesting.
as in,
um,
what you're saying is like if you were, touch wood, but you're diagnosed with cancer and you've only had it for a week or two, that's still a chronic condition.
No, I don't. That's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just included as the 5 leading disease groups
Yeah,
of
okay.
chronic health conditions. So, yeah, the 5 leading chronic health disease groups were cancer, mental health, musculoskeletal, cardiovascular, and neurological.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And of those, the biggest percentage was cancer and mental health of those 6 in 10. So, yeah.
Mental health, I'm not surprised. Well, yeah, if cancer's in there, I guess, I'm not surprised at that either, really. It's a real, there's so many cancers out there. I think detection is obviously growing.
Mm.
We've got a real skin cancer issue in Australia. Mental health, I mean, I'm looking at you. But look, mental health is something that's definitely grown in terms of its awareness.
Yeah.
This, in the last few years and last year, I mean, you talk about those businesses that have failed. Surely there's, I'd love to see the percentages of all those businesses that have failed in terms of their mental health.
Yeah, look,
But
obviously
it's
going to be huge.
And obviously, yeah. But the climate of
that's gonna have an
2024, right? We talked about interest rates and all those inflation, things like that. But it's all going to add extra stress. And then, I think people are taking themselves to get assessed for mental health a lot quicker than they used to.
Yeah. I think for me, when we looked at this as a topic, or to talk about this kind of topic, I still think we're kind of dancing around the true cause of chronic health conditions. And we touched on it with Dr. Danny, whether it's our food supply, whether it's all these different kinds of causes, right? But we talk about it being preventable, but yeah, I was just really surprised that in this study they didn't really dig deeper on how to prevent this.
Yeah.
Or
So
what the
you're
answers
saying,
were.
I mean, they talk about prevention being, exercise more and do those sorts of things.
Yeah,
and
they really
lifestyle.
talk about that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's usually the go-to that you hear about and how important that is and eating well. But the eating well part always gets me, and I think it fires you up a little bit. And we spoke to Dr. Danny, like you said, about it. But eating well when we don't really know what we're eating, and some of those things that we think that are good for us and we're told that are good for us, maybe actually harming us. And that's what you're saying, is that those things may be contributing to the chronic health conditions and the increase in chronic health conditions we saw last year.
Yeah, and I think that definitely has its impact. I think that, I know that there was another topic we're going to talk about, was that in health, but the cost of food prices and things like that. Obviously we can tie this in here, but when you're looking at chronic health and all those kind of things that could impact it, we know that the foods we eat have an impact. We know that exercising more, because we clearly don't exercise enough. All those kind of things could change the landscape of chronic health, right? But I don't know if there's enough being done about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of broad
Yeah.
awareness, but not enough detail.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like as a country, we have, high participations of sport. We have high participation of, outdoor activities. All those kind of things, compared to a lot of other countries. That maybe don't have that.
Because if that's going to continue to grow, 60%.
Yeah,
far out,
that's
and a lot of it can be
it's a big
preventable.
number. It's a big number.
Scary. I'll pick out the next one out of the hooker. Hui. Oh, we'll go with this. Wellness growth.
Wellness growth. Talk to
me.
me.
Grew 9%. I think that's 23-24 actually, as per the article, not per the paper in the hooker. But that's
the article said that
Global
it was
Wellness
in 2024,
Institute.
wasn't it? From the notes I got here.
Okay. Oh, 2024. I stand corrected. Yes.
A continuous expansion in 2024.
Yeah. Wellness.
Growing
space, eh?
I think it is, and I think it comes
because
back down to what we were just talking about.
Rise. Chronic health.
No, I don't think it's because of mental.
Wellness is.
I think it's everything. I think people are looking for alternatives to improving their health.
For sure.
And that's where the wellness space comes in.
Wellness being, we see a lot of the ice bars, the sauna. I mean, you know this better than me. The ice bars, the saunas, the alternative. It's not really alternative medicine or anything like that. It's more about, and some of these are facilities, right? These wellness hubs, these wellness facilities that promote the ice bars, the infrared saunas, the float tanks, all the rest of it. And there's some evidence to show that it's really working. We did a podcast on ice bars. Went through some details there. You've got in your gyms, you've got some wellness facilities.
Yeah. So I just brought this up because I think you're right. Like it's a very broad term, right? And as an industry, the wellness industry, which we're talking about, has grown by 9%. Did you say? So,
because I guess does that also touch into the natural remedies and things like that?
Well, that's the thing here. So the global wellness economy, like as you're kind of touching on, includes a lot of different things. So it does include traditional and complementary medicine. There is mental wellness stuff as well. There's the tourism of wellness, like obviously retreats and hotels that do these wellness retreats and things like that.
I'd love to go to one.
It also includes, personal care and beauty. So, the interesting part there is it does include, female body sculpting, sessions. It does include, Botox and facials and things like that. So it is a very broad activity, broad area, but
synthetically making you look younger, that's fine.
But that is that is the global wellness. But where I think
not too much, but
where I think it's where it's increased the most over the last couple of years is definitely in the healthy eating and nutrition side of it. The physical activity part of it, so things like ice baths and things like that are incorporating that in wellness clubs as opposed to just gyms. I think gyms do fit into this as the overall economy, but the addition of the wellness side of it into gyms has definitely grown massively. But the biggest growth of this wellness space has definitely been in those alternative health kind of aspects, things like, before, there wasn't a lot of information around, your heart rates and things like that. Like that's part of it as well. And
now you wear a watch all the time.
Yeah, you wear a watch all the time, and then you can use that
tells you
data.
How you sleep and
exactly. You can use that data to then take supplements, or you can use that data to then match your nutrition. So that aspect of it's what's grown the most. Is it too much?
Good for us or too much, you reckon? Do you think, if you've got an addictive personality, I think it can be a bit, it can become a bit chaotic. You know what I mean? Then you've got an expectation to be a certain levels, and there's too many numericals that you've got to consistently meet, as opposed to just.
And that's where I think that the wellness will grow the most in the next couple of years. I think it will be in the service of that, because there is too much data for an individual to really understand and to manipulate. But there
themselves individually too. This is like
Correct.
outside of, a health practitioner.
Yeah.
Actually, facilitating all this. This is, you can wear a watch, you can go to the supplement store, you can go to any of these clubs. I'm not saying right or wrong. I think it's great, but it's also,
So the biggest area I think of growth in wellness for me, that I think over the next couple of years, will be the service-based industry and how to interpret that and give people the best outcomes. Because anyone can go get an Apple Watch, a Whoop, or a Ring, whatever it is.
Yeah,
and
it's also a bit trendy too, isn't it?
Yeah, look at it.
These
but
wellness
that's like
retreats.
With anything, though. That's like with anything. People are adopt it early, and people do it because it is trendy.
Yeah. So
I don't.
You think it's going to continue to trend?
I think it will continue to trend, but the areas of the economy, of the global wellness economy, will change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will become more service based because there is an overwhelm of data.
And then people are looking for.
They're looking for solutions.
Yeah.
And they'll continue to look for solutions whilst.
But also guidance with those
solutions, guidance. Whilst
that's what I'm saying with the service based is more guidance as opposed to you just doing it yourself sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. There'll be better recommendations for you in terms of exactly what to do based on that data. At the moment, you can grab any of that data anywhere. You can go on Google and put up and look at what's going wrong in your Whoop
find anything
or whatever that is, and you'll find, you need to do this more. Maybe you should take this supplement. Maybe you should do that. But then you're not looking at health overall. I think that's where it becomes overwhelming, and that's where I see the growth in health and wellness. Is how do you then give an individual the best overall health service in a way. And I think it will become super automated. I don't think there's an industry there for practitioners. I think it will be automated by AI, and there will just be an individual that guides.
Yeah.
It won't be an industry of new practitioners or anything like that.
Because I do worry that it becomes a bit obsessive. I know personally.
It will be, but that's anything though. People get obsessed with running.
Aren't they at the moment?
Yeah. So I don't think it will become obsessive in that way. I think just more and more people will seek alternatives to help with their health,
which is good.
If 60% of people have chronic health conditions,
and
as we saw in that study, there was no real understanding of how to deal with it apart from 2/3 of it's preventable.
Yeah.
And then I asked you, how is it preventable? And the current medical system will tell you, take Ozempic, take this, take that. That doesn't work long term.
Have you seen the facility Ozempic have set up?
No.
It's amazing.
What do you mean? Is it for
where they're making it? Yeah. People traveling all around the world to go and work there. It's
really?
bringing in so much money. Where is it?
I think it's in Norway.
Norway, yeah. I think Norway, yeah.
But the thing is with that, so interestingly as well, there's a shortage on that, right?
Yeah.
And the Australian government have banned, maybe not Australian government, sorry, I think it's definitely the New South Wales government. I don't know if it's Australia-wide. But in New South Wales, you can't, if you're a compounding pharmacist, you can't make Ozempic. Which, again, it doesn't make sense to me, right? If that's your answer, that's the current medical answer.
Gold standard
is if you have a chronic health disease, lose 10 kilos and
3 weeks.
Everything will get better, even though that may or may not happen, right? But that is the current prescription.
Then why aren't we just getting it out there?
Why shouldn't exactly?
Yeah.
Why aren't we getting it to more people? I don't think that's the best option.
Yeah. Go and look at this Ozempic facility. That's why.
Irrespective of that, right? But then this is why wellness will grow.
Yeah.
Is because stuff like this is not working. You can't get Ozempic, so then what are you going to do? You're going to have to look for alternatives.
Yeah.
And if you can get it and you do get the results, what happens when you can't get it anymore or there is a shortage of it? You're not actually fixing the underlying cause of the problem. And I think that's where the wellness economy will go.
So
Because we don't have
more
the answers in the current medical system.
Yeah, more growth ahead potentially. Righto. Last one. You talk a lot, mate. Last one.
Well, you can talk, mate.
Oh no, it's not the last one. There's a couple more in here. We touched on this before. We touched on this with Dr. Danny. Costs of groceries have gone up by 10% in 2024.
Yeah, I think that came out this week or last, or maybe it was last month.
Why bother? It's cheaper to just, that's what Dr. Danny was saying. It was like, it's cheaper to be unhealthy, or it's expensive to be healthy in a way with...
Overall groceries went up by 11%, right? But if you were to break it down...
11,
what did you say?
10. Someone must have miswrote that one.
You miswrote that, but it was 11%.
Cut that.
So in the last 12 months, so from January to December in 2024, groceries went up 11%.
Yeah.
So overall, but when you break it down, there was higher increases in fruit and veg and fresh meats than there was in packaged and other foods.
Yeah.
They also increased as well.
That's okay. Like, you're expecting it to be an increase, but
the majority of increases came in fresh fruit and veggies. And the sad part about it, and I when I was reading the article, was like, because petrol went up and cost of shipping went up, and
11%.
Irrespective, right? But then when you talk about how that impacts overall on everything else, if you know, I think I'll bring up the article, but the average weekly shop went from $191 for the average Australian family to $213. All right, so you're looking at what, $20 increase,
yeah,
$23 increase, $22 increase, right? Now, the average family, when that increases by $22, and you go, well, how can I make that back up, right? And you're sitting there looking at, well, maybe I won't buy as much meat this time, and I'll go and get the pre-packaged meal that serves 4 and costs $12. I don't know what the pre-packaged meal will cost, right? Or I buy a couple of steaks and it kind of cost me $40. You're then going to start looking for alternatives.
Yeah.
All right? And when you start looking for those alternatives and they become pre-packaged, you don't know what's in it. And when you don't know what's in it, what's that doing to your overall impact of your health? And that's the thing that overall we're not really understanding, I think. And then when we talk about 6 in 10 have chronic health conditions, how much of that's going to be impacted over the next year or two when people, when realistically they're not eating good food. Yeah. They're eating prepackaged food because it was more convenient.
Become a thing. Yeah.
But not only more convenient, it's cheaper.
Cheaper and convenient. Like, you can't beat that, can you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you got to buy.
And then, so why are you gonna go and buy a load of vegetables? Then have to, put them together yourself when you can buy a package. Yeah, I see that.
I haven't been to Coles in a while, but I'll use an example. The last time I was there, right? You go to get so if you've got a family of 4 and you go to get they come individually wrapped unless you get the big packets. But if you just want to get a standard steak, I don't know, like a Scotch fillet or something like that, you got to buy 4 individual.
Yeah.
You're looking at $12 to $20, depending on the size, per steak.
Yeah.
So if I buy the 4 of the cheapest ones, there's $42.
Yeah.
But then I put that down and I walk to the next, like towards the end of the aisle, and there's the pre-packaged, put it in the oven, don't have to think about it, serves 4 people. I think it was like...
and it could be marinated or something.
Marinated as well, exactly right. Like, done for you, just got to put it in the oven for 30 minutes. Or the air fryer for 30 minutes. Yeah. And it was like $15.
Yeah.
It was $18. Like, no one is then you're going to put the 4 steaks down.
That's right.
Irrespective of the fact that we can talk about what Dr. Danny was talking about, like maybe those steaks aren't nutritionally...
Well, hopefully when people start seeking, like you were saying, seeking... alternative, well, looking into what they're actually eating, then maybe it's going to swing back again. But that's definitely where it's at. But
when it swings back, that's like half the cost. Like it's costs half to go buy that prepackaged meal.
You can still do your shop for $192.
You can still do it.
Yeah.
But you're getting like...
And you can be more convenient. It can be more convenient for you.
And it will be more convenient because you just got to put it in the oven for 30 minutes as opposed to turn the barbecue on. Yeah, get the hot plate hot. Yeah, cook 4 steaks.
Are you still buying whole animals
Yeah,
and put them in the freezer.
yeah.
Where do they come from?
Farms around New South Wales usually.
Nice.
Why?
Do you cut them up yourself? Oh, sorry, I just wanted to
No,
ask.
they come pre-cut.
Hence why he hasn't been at Coles recently.
That's why I haven't been to Coles. to
Haven't
buy a
invited me
steak.
over for dinner recently either.
Oh,
Let's
sorry,
go
mate.
to the next one for health, which could also sort of segues to sport. The running pandemic has.
You called it a pandemic
That's what the article
or
said.
post-pandemic?
Yeah,
Pandemic running. You just read
it's
the
a running.
article
It's a
wrong.
new running pandemic. Yeah, and the Sydney Marathon is now on the map as, one of the major marathons in the world.
Mm.
There's a strict category and sort of requirement to get into that. But yeah, so that's on the map now. That's as of last year. They had to get a certain number of people through and everything, and it's there. And now it's actually really difficult to get into it.
Yeah, I think that this was always coming up. I remember talking to some runners last year. They were like, oh, Sydney Marathon's not there on the qualifying list. So, like, if they want to go do one of the other majors, you have to qualify first. And,
That's right.
so that means, if you can't qualify here, then you can't go over there and
Yeah.
all those kind of things. Like, so considering there was a lot more runners, this boom in runners in Australia, and there wasn't a way to qualify for any of the majors. So I think that's really cool that now there is a way that the Sydney Marathon is a qualifying kind of race. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting that, we've seen it in the clinics, the impact of this running boom, and what that looks like, which, I think it's good. I think it's good that there's that running boom.
Convenient, cheap.
It's convenient. It's cheap.
Back to the prepackaged meals.
I think that there's also, well, it depends. Like, Garmin watch ain't
But
cheap.
I was just about to say, yeah, people are spending money.
People spend money on this. Yeah,
everyone's
like
doing a triathlon now.
the
They're not
barrier
cheap.
to entry is cheap.
Yeah,
But I think when people are getting into it, there's still
Yeah.
some costs there. But what I think has helped with the running boom now more than ever is the fact that you can track your runs and you
Yeah.
can gamify it
yeah,
and all those kind of things. I think that has made the boom bigger, as opposed
It's
to any
become-
other individual sport. Because yes, you can run in run groups and run
Yeah.
clubs and things like that, but it's still an individual sport at the end of the day. And I think that's why it's grown.
yeah, absolutely. But coming from that running group or club point of view, I think that's something that people craved. Like people started running during COVID and stuff on their own because they could only go 5Ks around their home or
Yeah,
whatever.
it was easy to do
Yeah,
and
and
got
now-
you out of the house.
Yeah, and now people, we've seen the 545 it grow, a lot in numbers last year, and it's become a bigger community because people like to not just do the run. It's or it's not about there's certain people obviously are training for events and pace is important, things like that. But just being there, having coffee after, and sort of that community feel, that is, I think people do crave that. I think maybe that's something that we've coming out of the pandemic.
But I think that's human nature, right? So running became big because it was easy to do and it was a way to get out of the house and all those kind of things during the pandemic. And then it caught on because it then became, like I said, you could challenge yourself because of all the technology. But human nature always comes back to the herd mentality, and people do want community. People do want to be around other people, and that's why run clubs have gotten big.
And everyone's doing it.
I don't think
Strava
it's any other
must
way.
be doing so well. Strava, everyone's on Strava.
They'd be killing it.
Oh my
but
God.
I think that's the key there, right? That the key there is that the run clubs have now become big
Yeah,
because of the herd mentality part of it.
for sure.
It was always going to come back round to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like I was off running for a little while with my hip, and I remember coming back. I know you do a bit of running too. Don't look at me like,
Oh, I do. But
I'm an alien here.
I'm not.
But I actually am part of this big, growth in running. But Yeah, I think like it's one of those exercises that gives you the endorphins. I don't think like that a lot of other sports do, and then you add the community side and all the technology now. It's no surprise, and people are always talking about what runners you wear and things like. Oh God! So yeah, it's taken off. I think it will continue to.
Yeah, I think it will too. I just
More
want to
running
bring
clubs. Let me tell you.
one, I guess, slightly negative part to the boom that I think sometimes gets overlooked, and something that I think is important. It's maybe not something that's going to impact now, but something I can maybe forecast, maybe not for the next year, but maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, is that running itself probably isn't the greatest sport for longevity.
No.
And
Nah.
there is going to be a lot of chronic injuries that come from this. But also, we know from human physiology that running's not the greatest for our overall health long term either, and that strength training is way better for the body.
Yeah.
So where my not that I think it's great that there's a running boom. You know, I think everyone does some sort of running in their fitness regime now, and I don't think that should stop. I think it's a good
But like
thing.
you say, there's people doing longer runs too now. People are like really trying to do these marathons and things like that.
And I think that's where there's maybe a bit of concern around the running boom. You know, is that because of the low barrier to entry, because of the competitive nature of it that you can put on yourself, which I all think is great, there is a stress on the body that scientifically we know is not great for our body.
Yeah.
We're not made to run like that.
Thanks for bringing up some trauma for me, mate.
Sorry, mate.
I am probably the perfect example of that. Like I've played football my whole life, then run my whole life, and then way my sort of body was shaped and like just doing too much too soon. That's exactly sort of how it's worked out. And now my hips down to like 35% of the cartilage left, and I can only run 5-6K a week, if that, depending on how I'm going.
Not that I want to put a damper on the
mate.
running boom, but but
marathons
it's the
are off the
reality.
cards for me.
Like,
But it's true. It's true.
You look
Longevity
at
in running, you got to
you look at any study on our physiology, and running's important to our physiology. Like, of course, our cardiovascular health and our lungs and all that kind of stuff, right? Super important. But I think that there's a balance that is going to tip, because of the running boom, is going to tip more to running, which we know is detrimental to our cardiovascular health, detrimental to our muscle recovery, detrimental to our protein, in our muscles and things like that. That I think will be overstated.
And you can see how like the industry's trying to compensate. You mean, look at the shoes that we wear. For example, this is a great shoe, but
it's for free, mate. Don't diss it.
Shout out to Hoka. See you guys soon. Sponsorship, just let us know. DM below. No, but the foam underneath the shoe is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the support, and the shoe almost becomes a rocker, they call it, where it's sort of springing you forward as opposed to the foot itself.
And we've seen in the past, like,
that's not necessarily the best for our body long term.
This highly alters our biomechanics.
Yeah. It means our foot just becomes an extension of our leg.
Well, no, our foot, the shoe becomes an extension of our leg.
Shoe, yeah.
The foot's
we become
completely
dependent
ignored
on the shoe, don't we?
Yeah. And I think, again, now we're going down to the physio part of us, but again, you look at something like that, and that is not biomechanically correct in what anyway. But like you said, the way that the foam sits, that they've created a shoe that will potentially prevent injuries, but will cause other injuries because you just threw out the whole biomechanics.
We've increased support in the shoe, which is probably going to get us running more, but then eventually something's going to break down.
Because if you're like, I don't think there's any, I don't want to put shit on the manufacturing of these shoes, right? But if you're a shoemaker and you go there and you go, okay, well, there's a running boom, and the biggest issue, people need to buy shoes, right? And when they go to the shop to buy shoes, they're going to go, okay, which is the best shoe for me so my feet don't hurt? They're not going to say so prevent injuries from my knees and my hips and my back, because the first thing that happens when someone first starts running is they start getting foot pain. They start getting blisters. They start getting, the pressure on the foot causes foot problems. So as a shoe manufacturer, they're doing the right thing by getting a product to market that is more likely to prevent foot problems. That shoe and these different types of shoes are not there to help us biomechanically.
I think it surprises people where running is actually such a it's such a complex movement pattern. There's actually so much that goes on, from not just in your feet, all the way up to, we talk about good runners run with their hands and things like that, and there's actually a lot more to it than how our foot is. But let's move on away from running for a second.
This is our last topic now, right?
Let's get on to sport. Some quick fire for you here.
Ooh.
These are that stiff. I think last time I took them off, they've just molded to that point, and that's it. The shoelace is still done up. No. It's never good at that. I used to have this guy on my team, and his shoelaces were always undone. It did my head in.
Well, he used to play with his shoelaces.
No, I think he did it on purpose. It was just a training, try to be
just
cool
a training
sort of thing.
Wouldn't you try and step on his shoelaces?
Yeah, for sure, all the time, except that I was too slow. But anyway, James, cryptocurrency in golf. In December 2024, Las Vegas, the showdown, the prize money was $10 million US dollars in crypto. Or $10 million worth. I wonder what that...
Well, it depends at the time.
What
exactly. The value of the crypto was.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like,
would you accept cryptocurrency if
as a form
of a prize?
I would. Yeah, I think so. Like,
I'm not sure if that's the way forward. It's probably going to push a lot of people. Might bring a lot of people towards, but push a lot of people away too.
Yeah, look, I still think that we're kind of in this weird middle, right, of cryptocurrency versus, our current standard currency. But, if you're a golfer, they make so much money per year. If one tournament pays you in cryptocurrency, you're going to you just leave it there, or who knows? Maybe they, I'm sure they could afford a really good financial advisor that would have told them what to do with it. But
Rory McIlroy.
So who won it?
Scotty Scheffler.
Showdown.
People listen to this that enjoy golf a lot.
24.
Get it right. And Bryson DeChambeau. I have no idea how to say that name. And Brooks
Rory
Koepka.
McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler came out on top. So it was a team event by the looks of it. So they won 10 million each, or they won 10 million in total?
I think it's in total.
Okay. So yeah, look, I think that's going to happen more and more it will start in individual sports before it gets to team sports. But what was the question? What is it?
No,
is it
that was
normal?
just the statement. Yeah. Something that happened in 2024. We've never seen that before. Well, I've never seen that before. Prize money of cryptocurrency.
But I think it will happen more and more in individual sports.
Interesting.
It'll probably happen in some, maybe not in tennis, but it'll happen in more and more, maybe in like boxing or something next.
Boxing, yeah. Some YouTuber maybe. Okay, Real Madrid. This is more our game.
Real, but yeah. Not real.
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Who cares? Are the first club to surpass 1 billion euros in annual revenue.
It's crazy.
Oh my god!
I think
their profits are not matching though. It's not.
Yeah, well, because they had a new stadium, so probably.
Yeah,
I think that would have contributed to the
pretty successful
increase in annual revenue. Is they've got more bums on seats per game.
Sadly, a lot of that success has been against Liverpool in recent times, but
that's the best part about it.
I don't like talking about real Madrid, fake Madrid. No, yeah, there you go. It's just crazy, isn't it? The money in football.
No, but look, I'm not sure. I know we looked at the articles and stuff on this, but I think they didn't really break it down exactly where that money came from. But I think we're just purely looking at a massive juggernaut, like financial juggernaut, that make shitloads of money in sponsorship and selling TV rights and selling jerseys and all that kind of stuff. That they built a brand new massive stadium that I think would have tipped them over. I don't, obviously there would be growth in all those other areas. There'd be more TV rights, more merchandise sold. Like, of course, there's growth there, but
sponsorship
I reckon
for that stadium. I wonder what that.
No,
would
I don't
be.
think did they sponsor it. I don't think they sponsored the stadium. No, I think it's still called the Bernabeu.
Oh, is it?
I don't know.
I hate it when they sponsor the stadium. It loses its traditional roots, Like
the Emirates,
it's still
called the Bernabeu Stadium.
Wow, that's huge.
Good
on them for that. I'll give them 1 point.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they have. I might be wrong, but I can't find anything on the internet. But yeah, I think if you increase the capacity there by that much. Yeah, I think it's almost 80,000 capacity. I don't know what their previous one was.
Yeah. They were playing at a training complex for a little while.
Well, but even before that, before the new stadium, like
the old stadium.
I don't know. Like you got to think like now that becomes a tourist attraction. Like imagine when people go there. Like I think they hold concerts there now as well. Like this stadium is incredible. They held the NFL.
And that's Madrid. Like Madrid own that. It's not like here in Australia where the government owns
renting it. No. This is owned by the club.
That's right.
Yeah.
You put a couple of concerts there. My gosh.
So yeah, I think as a business, having this new stadium probably made a big difference to their top line revenue. But yeah, they've got a loan to pay back on this stadium, so that's probably why they're not making profit.
I'm not sure by the time this podcast gets aired if Manchester United would have played Real Madrid, but they've got them in the next round of the Champions League. Have I?
Shut up, you smart ass fuck. Let's go to the next question.
They don't. What's happened? What's happened?
Shut up. Oh. Liverpool will have them and they'll lose.
No. Who put this in here? Man United scored 57 goals. Oh, sorry, they scored 57 and conceded 58.
Of course you put that in there. You also put that in there.
That's a joke. That's in the Premier League. Oh, my days. Listen.
What do you want to talk about? Is that for the 2024
Manchester United 2024, what do you think?
It was not a great year. It was terrible.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're being honest for once. That's good.
What did you want me to say?
Horrible season.
Horrible. Oh, hang on. 2024 calendar year we're talking about? What are we talking about here?
23, 24.
Oh, 2023. But that was 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, it just finished.
You're talking about the calendar month, the calendar year? So the back half of the 23-24 season, the beginning of the 24-25 season?
He's questioning now.
But irrespective, 2024 was not a great year for Manchester United. You don't even know. You just
2024. It's just 2024.
So it's the calendar year.
It's just the calendar year.
Calendar year. Okay. Yeah, it's not great.
I've got more for you.
Oh, here we go. Lay it on.
Where did Man United place last year?
In the Premier League? I think it was like 7th?
8th.
8th.
Horrible. Anyway, looking forward to the predictions. Sorry?
What?
I'm looking forward to the predictions. As a wrap of 2024 business, tough year.
Business, I think, was a tough year for a lot of people. Obviously, we went through those stats.
Health was interesting. Health was interesting. Obviously, like things we spoke about, more awareness around.
Yeah, I think 2024 was really interesting for health. And then the American election obviously brought a lot of light to health, and we'll see what happens in 2025 with that. I think in Australia we're becoming a lot more aware of what's happening on the health landscape, maybe more than previously. I think in health as well in Australia, we are unfortunately moving away from a how do you want to call it? Medicare in Australia was pretty prominent and had a massive impact in our overall health, where we were a little bit like the NHS. We were never like the NHS where it was fully subsidized, but we were a little bit more like that. I think we're moving more towards an American system, which I'm not saying is great. I don't think that's good, but we probably have realized that more as a country.
Yeah.
And it's now changing people's health choices. When we look at all those things, those topics we talked about in 2024, I think that will become important to shape what happens in 2025 with health.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot more autonomy that's come through in people, in 2024, which will be interesting where that goes in 2025 in terms of health. And in terms of sport, it was a rubbish year for Manchester United and Liverpool on the up. Come on.
Mate, Liverpool haven't won anything, mate. Just calm the fuck down.
Big growth for 555 run clubs.
When Liverpool have trophies to show, then we can talk about it.
Okay, well, join us for the next podcast where we go into our predictions for 2025 in the 3 pillars: business, health, and sport. Thanks for your time today,
exciting.
James.
Thanks, Age.